everyone. Is everyone looking forward to go back home? So today's session, we are going to discuss about what you can do, few things to make your lives easier as part of any kind of administration activities in your particular org. Me and Keshav, we see a lot of use cases when we visit customers, like how can we automate this kind of processes? A couple of examples that we are going to walk through. So with that, my name is Ritesh McKenna. I'm part of the sales consulting product management team. And with me, I have Keshav as well. Myself, I've been with Tableau for 3 years. Prior to Tableau, as a customer as well, coming from Glassdoor. And I would like to also introduce Keshav. If you want to give a quick intro, Keshav.
Hi, my name is Keshav Rayaprolu. I am with the Professional Services org. I'm a solutions architect. I've been with Tableau for about a year now, but I've had lots and lots of experience writing code and building solutions. I've got close to 20 years of writing code, so a lot.
Yeah, Keshav is indeed our resident API expert. If you have any kind of questions, deep learning topics. Today's agenda, these are the high-level topics that we are going to cover, which we feel like very important. And based upon the time constraints, we pick up these topics. But if you have any other kind of questions, feel free to stay back and we can discuss a lot more further. So a couple of the topics that are displayed on the screen is the on-demand cache refresh, like how you can leverage the cache as much as possible you can to make your user request as fast as possible. And of course, the user migration, the content migration as part of your daily administrative tasks, so that you don't have to do the routine tasks every single day. And of course, the last one is the content synchronization, which is the hot backup. So which means you don't have to do like a backup restore. If one of your cluster is down, immediately you have other cluster which can be immediately bring back up. So you don't have to, you pretty much have like a 0% downtime. So we'll discuss that as well. Again, today's agenda is to have everyone in this room to think about what can be done to make your lives easy as part of your daily administrative tasks. Have some kind of like an automation workflow for all your repetitive tasks. So these are just the examples that we just showcased, but the idea is you can take this beyond and make your daily tasks automated. So with that, let's start the first topic, cache. So how many in this room leverage Tableau Server Cache? Yeah, so I'm surprised not everyone raised their hands, but cache is a very important aspect of Tableau Server. So cache as server is one of the processes in Tableau Server, which plays a really important role. What is cache? Let's say if you're leveraging a live connectivity to one of your databases, and you don't want to hit the database connection every single time. For example, if I log in the morning, I view a report A, and I log off. Then I again log back in after 2 hours. My request will not go back to, not be going back to my backend database again. It is going to go hit the cache. So we are reducing the amount of effort, the whole activity going back to the database, getting back the results. So which means we are also increasing the efficiency of your report runtime. It's not only for me. Let's say Keshav logs in after me. Even he'll be able to share my cache as well. So all the subsequent users who logs in after the first request, they will be able to go hit the cache and get the results as fast as possible. It can be live connection also. Even if you're using an extract, you should be looking at leveraging the cache because it is pretty good. So obviously there are various cache settings within Tableau Server, which I'll be talking in the next slide. And all the cache settings in the Tableau Server is all at the server level. It is not at the workbook level. So we're going to discuss how we can separate the server level cache versus the workbook level cache. And also the on-demand cache. What is an on-demand cache? So for example, let's say you have a MPP database where the results are getting updated every 2 hours. But you don't want to hit the cache in that scenario because you want to see the updated results. If you're hitting the cache, it means it's not giving you the updated results. So your users might be getting confused. So you want to come up with a scenario where when your tables are updated or when your ETL job is completed, you want to do like an on-demand cache refresh. So you see two different scenarios here. One is obviously the new TSM, and the other one is the pre-TSM error settings. There are three different types of cache settings here. One is the refresh less often, which means you are actually leveraging the cache to its full capacity, which is default 12 hours. Either it's 12 hours or it's in first out the cache. We have 512 MB of Redis cache, which is plenty, by the way. And the next one is the balanced. So that means you can specify a specific number, like if you say like 60 minutes or 120 minutes. So that means the whole server cache will be awaited every 2 hours. It will be flushed out every 2 hours. And the last one is refresh more often, which means there is no cache at all. Every single request is going and hitting your live connection or else your extract. You're not leveraging the cache at all. So these are the three different cache settings, and keep in mind all these are at the server level. So whatever you do, the cache here, that is going to impact your whole server. So nothing is at the workbook level.
This is really great, Ritesh. I'll be on behalf of the audience here. I'll be asking you a few questions so we can make this a little bit more interactive. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about these kinds of questions as well. I mean, sure, there'll be more than that as well. You mentioned about workbook level or server level cache, right? How can we do this at workbook level if I have a user requirement? Now, I've seen this coming from my clients. How do I do that? That's one. And then what is this whole on-demand thing? I mean, it seems very interesting. I just wanted to understand a bit more on that. So if you can elaborate, or if you have more thoughts on that, I think we can.
Yeah, definitely. Great questions. Everyone in the audience might be running into this scenario. How do I separate my server cache with the workbook cache? Let's discuss the importance of this use case. So when you set up the whole overall server level cache, refresh less often, which is 12 hours. So you're leveraging the cache for all the workbooks. If you have like 100 workbooks in your Tableau server, all the workbooks will be leveraging the cache for 12 hours. So there is nothing that you can do about it, right? But we want to break it. Let's say there are some workbooks which are connecting to HANA or Redshift, where your data is kept updating every 2 hours. But your cache is set to 12 hours because there are 80 other workbooks which are connecting to SQL Server, where the data doesn't get updated, maybe just like once a day or maybe once a week. So how do I separate these and also leverage the cache? So that's where the whole automated process workflow comes into picture, and a couple of hacks that I'm going to talk about. So let's quickly look at this process flow. How do you warm up the cache? Have anyone in this room use email subscriptions to warm up the cache? Yeah. So that is one trick. Probably that's the old age trick. You will know everywhere. Wherever you read in the blogs, they say if you want to leverage the cache, warm up the cache, just run a subscription, like a dummy subscription. So that's the very first workflow that you say it. You send a request. It can be any email address, doesn't matter. So send out a dummy email subscription. So workbook is sending a request to your live database connectivity. It's warming up the cache. The results are stored in our Redis cache in Tableau server. And later point of the day, when the user comes in and logs onto your Tableau server, retrieves the report, all the requests are going and hitting the cache. So that's the very first workflow. Now, remember the 20 other reports which are using the MPP databases where the records are getting updated every 2 hours. So I do want to get my new results, but also I want to leverage my cache. What do I do? That's where you can write a script. Either you can use a JavaScript API, or else you can use a Python, simple Python script, or even a simple PG script, a SQL update script. So there is something called as how you await the cache. How can you refresh the cache in Tableau system? There are multiple ways, but the easiest way is the simple trick is the last updated timestamp of your workbook. So that means if you ever noticed, if you publish a workbook, if you ever republish a workbook that you're using, if you just modify something and republish, it will change the last updated modified date timestamp or the published date timestamp, right? So based upon that, we actually await the cache. Does it make sense? So whenever you update a workbook, it will take off the cache. The cache is awaited. So all the script, in the script you need to do as part of your scripting languages, the last updated date time, where you can fetch it from the Postgres DB, just add a millisecond to it. That will automatically await the cache.
That's awesome.
So you can make this as part of your workflow when your ETL job is completed, or else when the new records get inserted in your databases, check all the workbooks which are using those databases and say update statement in your scripting language, whatever you choose, add a millisecond to it. And Tableau automatically thinks, we are just cheating Tableau system by saying we are republishing the workbook. We are not republishing the workbook, we are just changing the column timestamp. That's it. So with that, and again the whole process comes back, we'll rerun the subscription and the cache is again warmed up.
Awesome, Ritesh, but one thing that keeps coming back to my mind is you said about email subscriptions. Now I know that you can have email subscriptions per user. Every user can subscribe to your workbook, and there will be like maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of people who have subscribed to those to that workbook. Now you talked about an email subscriptions and going out. Now, would that mean every time you refresh this cache, that all these 1,000 users or 2,000, how many other users, right? Do they all get these emails saying that the refresh is getting extracted every single time, or is there a better way?
Great questions. Maybe already everyone in the room is already thinking about it. So how many in the room know that the cache is not shared between the users when you use a security, row-level security? Anyone experienced that? Yeah, so whenever you have a single sign-on, either to your backend directly, or else if you are using a row-level security from the Tableau perspective, which is like the username function, whenever you use that, the cache is not shared. Obviously, in the upcoming releases, we are doing a better job to make the sharing the cache much more better. You'll see that in the release notes, hopefully soon. But yeah, as of today, the cache cannot be shared between the users, obviously for the security reasons. So what do I do in that scenario? You obviously want to still run the subscription only once and warm up the cache and share the cache among the rest of the users to make the overall request for subsequent users as fast as possible. So shall we send like 10,000, if you have 10,000 users, shall we send 10,000 emails? Maybe not. You don't want to spam all the users, and obviously you don't want to ruin your Tableau system by running 10,000 jobs, because every email subscription is using a backgrounder. And as you all know, backgrounder uses a lot of your server capacity in the backend. So again, we can modify the same script. What we do as part of the same process workflow, every user has an email address, right? Every user who is subscribing, or we are subscribing, like, or setting up, has an email address. As part of the run flow, during the runtime, we are going to change the email addresses of all the users who are interested or who are accessing this part of the workbook, or all the whole org will change all the email addresses on the runtime. We'll just give a dummy email, and the dummy email will be the same for all the 10,000 users. So we are making the system think that it's all 10,000 different users, but it's only going to one single user. So we are also making sure that the backgrounder runs only once, not 10,000 times. It is still spitting out all those for all the 10,000 users, but it is going only to one dummy email, and it is going to refresh the cache and create a cache for all those 10,000 users.
That's great, but why you said something about dummy email? Would that mean all these now users become dummy emails?
Not at all. It will be in some completely different container. So whatever your appropriate email address is, it is as intact. We are not going to mess up any of. So all your other subscriptions, they will not be messed up at all. So we can just use just during the runtime, and you are done.
Awesome. Awesome.
Does that make sense? Like how to cheat the system? We are just cheating the system again. We can't share the scripts, obviously, because it's part of the services proprietary, but I can tell you how to do it though, after the session, yeah. So this is one part of your workflow, because I'm pretty sure everyone in this room is interested to make their users' lives easy, to make I'm pretty sure everyone is asking, I want to have my reports within 5 seconds. So when you leverage the cache, you can achieve those sub 5 seconds kind of runtime. So leverage the cache as much as you can. So next comes the content migration. Since Tableau is an enterprise level platform, and in all the enterprise companies, you always have like dev instance, you have a QA instance, and then you have production instance. So how do I manage my content? So every single time when the user publishes a content, they'll be saying, okay, can you move this content? So you don't want to do this every single day. I mean, it's no fun, right? You want to obviously concentrate on bigger things. So with that, Keshav is going to take over how to create this rules-based constant migration and make this as a part of the automated workflow as well.
Thank you, Ritesh. So content, I mean, as Ritesh mentioned, content is just like the most important thing, and I'm sure everyone has lots of content and lots of environments that you work with, be it your dev prod stage, test kind of environments. Some may have, internal facing, external facing kind of content. You may have that separation, that segregation. Now, the current approach right now is everybody can go publish into these various environments as you migrate from one to another. But that would be a lot of effort on part of either your users or on part of your publishers or on part of the admins. Maybe sometimes they say, hey, admins go do this. Instead, we thought, maybe we had this requirement of writing a rules-based content management. So you can define these rules, like for example, there may be, maybe I'm jumping, okay.
Yeah,
maybe there are rules that maybe like you can use some kind of an approval comments, or you can have a tag, or you can say based on which you want to migrate, right? I mean, that's pretty common scenario, I guess. So what's this whole process, right? I mean, what are you achieving by doing these rules-based migration? Is that you're no longer having to do any manual process, and then this automated process is going to kick in and move your content to various environments as needed. And how do we do that? How do we do that? It's again another script, whatever is your scripting language, PowerShell, Python, whichever one that works. Connects up to the REST API. It uses the it connects up to the to both of your target and source servers, and then migrate the content using that. So how do we? Can skip this. This is not needed. A simple workflow here is right in the middle. You see that there is the script which is connecting to both your target and source servers, and then as the publisher is publishing the content and the rules are added, the script will watch for any kind of changes into the content, and then using the REST API, as I said, migrates it to your Tableau server, the target server.
Yeah, that's great. That's great point, Keshav. So how many in this room have this kind of a use case where you have like a different environments, you have to move the content?
Oh,
yeah, that's good. So Keshav, obviously there is like a lot of interest. Can you expand on those rules-based content migration? Also, obviously there is an extensions API as part of the 2018.2. Can we use those extensions API as well? And is there any kind of like a rules or any kind of like a rigid process of these content-based migration workflow, or is it as flexible as possible?
It is fairly flexible. I mean, again, you're defining your rules. Yeah. So those are good questions, and the process itself is not as rigid. It's kind of flexible that you can externalize your rules to a certain extent, and then based on those rules. And now you also asked about what kind of rules, right? I mean, some of the rules that we thought of were comments. You can put a comments, like let's say if you have a site admin or somebody who is a steward, is essentially approving those workbooks to be migrated. So then you can have those be put into the comments saying approved or something like that. And another thing we also thought of was tagging. You can tag your workbooks, and we look for a specific tag, and then that tag can also be put into your external configuration file, so that we look for that specific tag and move the content again. We had a very interesting use case where somebody was saying, if the workbook is or data source is above a certain size limit, I don't want to migrate them. That's interesting. So yes, we can observe the size of your workbook or data source and say if it is greater than, let's say, 2 gig, I don't want to publish that for some reason, and I don't know why. And another thing is we also had another request. This is based on security, that they didn't want, even if the publisher or even if the steward has approved accidentally, they wanted to blacklist sort of columns, like let's say if it is something to do with sales price or something like that. They didn't want to publish that workbook if in fact that existed in the workbook.
Sensitive information.
Yeah, it's sensitive information, it could be proprietary. So we also have derived a list of columns that, if you have these columns, it won't publish, even though it is been approved by a steward. So yeah, these rules can be expanded on this. With minor modifications, I think we can be fairly flexible on that.
So there is no limit. The rules can be anything.
Rules can be
Depending
made. You can make up rules.
Sure.
Is it possible to change data or change parts of the workbook as part of the migration? For example, if the workbook is in QA and it's pointing to a QA data source, and
It is, yeah. Yeah.
change the data source.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The question was if it's pointing to, for example, you're connecting to a QA database. While moving to the prod, you want to change the connections to the production database. So you have a document API, and that is exactly what is used to change it on the fly. Yeah.
Yeah, we can
That is
definitely
possible,
change.
yeah.
Yes. Another thing you also pointed out was
Extension
extensions
API.
API.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about it. I mean, it's brand new, understand? Everyone's excited about the extensions API, we are too. So we thought about how we can improve this. And first, we started thinking about what would be the use case for extensions API. So one of the things is right now, whatever, whether it is comments or tags, or they have a specific purpose within Tableau. And so if for some reason there is an approval comment, and that happens to be a common word, and if you want it in a different context, how would you do that? I mean, no, I cannot. I mean, if somebody puts that in if it thinks it needs to be migrated, that's a problem. So how do we avoid using these hacks into like comments or tags for this migration workflow? So we said, okay, maybe extensions API is the right way. So yes, we can use extensions API. We are still working on trying to upgrade this script and include an extension along with it so that you could leverage an extension. You could define your rules within your extension, and you can use that as well. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a couple more questions on this on behalf of the audience. How can I migrate the permissions? Let's say I'm on QA box, maybe I'm the publisher, but on the production box, I'm just a viewer. And also, what about the, let's say in my comments, the tags is a great concept, by the way, tags and comments, I liked it. So in the comments, someone says it's approved, and the content script ran today, and it automatically moved all my content, whatever is needed to the target box. What about tomorrow? Tomorrow it's going to run again, so I don't want to redo this and overwrite my, so how do I avoid all these pitfalls?
Good point, good point. We thought about that as well. So yep, when the script runs, we always log, like we know what is the start time and end time. And then based on the start and end, when it is done, we only look for new comments. We don't look for old comments. So if your content is already moved in a previous run, won't be remigrated. You don't have to worry about that.
So essentially you're looking at the date timestamp, you're doing a date diff and saying if it's more than like 2-3 hours, it is a stale already. Okay.
Exactly. And also what we have done is approval, whatever is your mechanism for approval, sticks until the workbook is updated. So once the workbook gets updated, the approval is no longer valid. It needs to be revalidated because the updation to the workbook may have caused it to not migrate anymore. Maybe it has added something that you don't want this workbook to be migrated. So we want somebody to look at it and say, okay, yes, I approve this again. So it seems like a repetitive process, but I think it is for the safety and security of your workbooks and your data that we thought we'd add this.
Permissions?
Permissions. Permissions is an interesting thing. Yes, we can migrate permissions from your test to prod. But what we thought about is that you may have different users or same users with different permissions in your environment. So copying the permissions over would really not help us in this case. And we want to have the site admins to have that level of granularity or control where they can actually go and set the permissions in their target environment. It could be production, it could be something else. So yes, we can migrate permissions, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah. So the message is, if you have if your environment, if the users are the same, if the permissions are the same, all the way across from your QA to prod, then the permissions can be migrated as part of the script. But if not, it's better to leave it to your site admin to manage it.
Now, another important point there is what happens if I have a workbook with refreshing extracts. Now, do I have to does somebody need to reapprove every single time? Because it's brand new data, right? I mean, how do we know? Actually, no, you don't need to reapprove. Once, if it is an extract refresh, we can migrate it without having to reapprove the workbook. So that's part of the script. We migrate the data as much as we can. Now, also another thing is sometimes what in a strange scenario we had like 4 environments they were looking at. So they had their production, they had their test, they had their test DR, and then production and production DR. And so what they said is fine. I mean, I'm running this script, it's migrating from test to prod. But what if at the same time I want to migrate it to DR as well, which is valid? Can we do it for more than one? So yes, this script can connect to multiple Tableau servers. It runs parallelly, it is optimized to run on different threads, and it would write content to multiple Tableau servers. Absolutely.
So it seems like for every rule you can add like a logic, like a flag, what can be checked before it can be migrated.
Absolutely, and this is extensible. Again, this is based on what requirements we had at the point of building this script. But if there are any other set of requirements, we absolutely can look into and then customize this pretty easily, and it's already in production running. And I'm sure it is pretty helpful script to have.
Yeah. So this is great, Keshav. The content is obviously the biggest thing. Yeah, please.
Is this script again proprietary or?
It is, but we'll share you the logic though. We can't just give you the script, but we'll give you the body, how to approach the solution. Yeah.
That's what services is all about, right? Yeah, this is unfortunately not a offering through the GitHub yet.
Yeah, it's not offering to the GitHub yet, but we'll give you ideas how to approach it.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. Yeah. Yeah. So obviously this is great. The content migration, everything. Yeah.
LDAP, hold your thought, because that's the next one.
That's the next topic. So obviously the content is one. The other biggest challenge is managing the users. So especially in the enterprise companies, a lot of people come, they leave, the AD groups get modified. So the next topic Keshav is going to take over is the user and group management.
Absolutely, exactly the same question that you asked, somebody asked us and said, hey, we have an LDAP system and we have users, groups, everything defined in our LDAP system. We don't want to go back and redo the same thing in Tableau, because Tableau requires the same set of users to be defined in there as well. So is there an automated process that we can do? So, and that's exactly what we try to solve with this one, is users and groups and group memberships. Those are the 3 things that we are going to talk. And what's it going to do for you? It's going to avoid having to duplicate the process, manual process. I mean, all kinds of processes can be avoided, and you can have one external system that you can, as an enterprise or company-wide, manage your groups, not just for Tableau, maybe for other systems. I don't know. I mean, that's possible. And but again, it's a script. It's a Python script that we have written in, but can it be extended to others? Yeah, absolutely. You can do it with PowerShell or with any other thing, and it uses REST API. A very simple workflow. I mean, this workflow is I put down as 3 charts, but it's pretty much the same. There is a script that's right in the middle, and then it is connecting to your AD system, LDAP system, whatever is your backend user management system is we can connect to that. And then it also connects to your Tableau server. And then there is one configuration that we need to do is we need to know the mapping between your AD groups or LDAP groups to the Tableau groups. Once we have that defined, we have defined a very basic UI for it. Once you define that, then all the script will do is any new users that get added will be migrated. Any users that get removed also can be taken care of. And then if the group members, I mean, the groups will come and go. So we have group members coming and going. So all those things can also be handled through this script. I think it's three exactly the same ones. It's just add, remove, and group. So we can also create groups with this script. We can, if we see a new group added into your AD, we can do that as well, and add users into that group as well. No, it is just a configuration file. AD synchronization it's going to just bring everything over. This is selective. You can migrate even groups also within here.
Can you add groups to folders?
Can I add groups to what, sorry?
Could you add groups to projects?
Yeah,
Yes.
you can.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the issues that we have is when someone leaves the organization, they're defined in a group. And what happens in Tableau is that they become unlicensed.
Unlicensed, yeah.
So we like to clean that up.
Right.
Yes, I mean, just hold your thought again. I think we covered that in a
Yeah.
little bit more depth.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, and we'll give you logics for why it needs to be unlicensed. There is a reason for it, right? I mean, yeah, all that definitely. Okay. I think again, coming back to your question on what happens if a user leaves the company, and if he owns, if that person owns content, what happens to it? I think the script follows exactly the way what Tableau Web UI does that as well. We do unlicense because we don't want to leave the content hanging. So we still have the content with the user, but the user cannot log in anymore because they will be marked as unlicensed. And we at this point, there is a workbook that somebody can look at and say, oh, these are all my unlicensed users. And then unfortunately, this is a manual job that some admin will have to take care of is to migrate that content over, change the ownership to a different user, and then eventually get rid of the user.
Or else we can write a script to automate that as well.
We can write a script to automate that as well, but deletion of, I've never, all through my career, whenever I have seen any delete, that freaks me out, because a script deleting something, and this happened to me once, is that we had data, and then we were writing a script that should only selectively delete something, and then the script went rogue on us, and then it decided to delete everything. And this was in a production.
Yeah, especially dealing with the metadata of Tableau. Yeah.
So we don't
careful.
necessarily want to delete somebody. So any user content. So I think it's best if somebody does that in a manual fashion.
Yeah, Keshav, can you talk about the management across different environments,
Oh,
on
yeah.
script handling, multiple environments?
So so even in the previous one, the content management also, we can, as I said, we can connect to multiple Tableau environments and move content, move users, groups, memberships, all those things can be done. Again, it's very simple. What we do is we have a threaded architecture wherein we spin up for each Tableau environment, we do spin up a different thread, and we gather the content, and then when it is time to publish, we just publish through all these different threads. So yes, we can support multiple, including DR. Yeah.
Thanks, Keshav. So next we're going to talk about the content synchronization. So content synchronization is more like a hot backup. For example, you don't want to deal with the restoration backup. So What is restoration and backup? How many of you have like a DR system? It's like a backup DR system.
Yeah.
So obviously the DR system is great, very reliable, but obviously there is a downtime to it. But what if you have like an external facing application to like thousands and thousands of users, and you literally can't take a risk of having a downtime no more than maybe like 5 minutes. So that means you need to have like 2 clusters up and running. So you have like cluster A and cluster B. So which also means whenever you publish a content on cluster A, whatever the content, it could be a workbook, it could be users, it could be an extract, it could be a published data source, whatever it is. Whenever you publish something, content on your cluster A, which is your active cluster, and the users are actually using it actively, we want to replicate that content. Whatever you publish, immediately we move that content to cluster B. We are just mirroring it immediately. So what does the backup do? The backdrop of the backup is you can't take a backup of certain content. You can't say, okay, I want the backup of whatever the content that was published in the last 1 week, or just today, or maybe just this particular workbook. When you do a backup, it's everything. And when you do a restore, it's whole thing. But with this content synchronization script, you can take those particular content, whatever is done, as an incremental backups. Tomorrow, it's a different incremental backup. Whatever you did today, that will be a backup tomorrow in this cluster B. So there is no limitation. Anything can be backed up. And the beauty of this is when the cluster A, when your active cluster A is done, it's already up and running. All you need to do is route your request from your gateway to your new cluster B, and it will take care of everything.
So you said this is interesting, but I know you mentioned about what can be what can be migrated. Is it all the content only, or is it settings of the Tableau? What is there?
Yeah, everything. So obviously, like I said, everything that you can imagine of, even the subscriptions. Obviously, subscriptions is an integral part of a lot of companies as well. Customized views. I mean, a lot of users log in, they customize the view, they save it. That is a different customized view. So even these can be migrated as part of your hot content backup. So obviously, you'll be turning off the subscription on your cluster B because you don't want to send like 2 emails or duplicate emails for everything. But yes, even the subscriptions can be backed up as well, hot, and also the customized views. Yes.
So what is the processing time for synchronization?
That is totally up to you. If you want to do like once a day, do it.
Once a day when you are doing synchronize, how much is seconds or minutes?
That depends upon your content. Let's say if you have an extract having 50 billion rows, that will take some time to republish that into the cluster B. If it's a workbook, 2 seconds. If it's just a user, 2 seconds. So it totally depends upon the size of the content and the type of the content. If it's subscription, it's very easy.
And you're not backing up all the data,
And
right?
we are not doing the whole backup. Remember that. It's just an incremental. If I publish just a workbook today, you're just taking the backup of just that workbook and putting into your new cluster. So that's the difference. It's an incremental backup, not the whole backup and the whole restore. You want to take it from here, Keshav?
Yeah, so to add on to that, the hot synchronization is that the script is very similar to what the rules-based content script, migration script is. It's very similar, but we don't have rules on it. And then it takes only historically changed. So since the last backup, I've seen one use case where they were asking, I'll keep this script running continuously. So as a new content is added to your production server or your main
Or
server,
modified.
it moves it right away. So you don't have absolutely no lag time. And then another thing to keep in mind is if you run at the end of the day, if you have lots of content, it may take a lot longer time. So what we also said is if you keep this running, you will have smaller packets to move. It's much more easier that way. That's just wanted to add on top of it.
Yeah.
Are you also moving extracts
Yeah.
Yes.
Extract is part of it.
as opposed to hitting the database against the clusters?
Yeah. I mean, if it's a live DB, it's much more easier. Obviously, it's just a XML file. If it's an extract, again, depending upon the size, it will just take time to publish it. Yeah.
So did you want to talk about, we had 2 use cases, right? One where they didn't want the DR to make connections back to the database. And then there was another one, they said, that's fine. So it depends on, you know,
Yeah.
what your setting is.
What is your
you
use
want
case?
only one
Yeah.
hit to your source database, or if you want multiple.
Yeah.
I have a question. So what's the mechanism for moving all the contents to the REST API, right? So your script, when you write it, you're just using the REST API
Yes.
to see them move the content down the workbook, push it, whatever it happens to be. It's all done through that.
Yeah. It is all done through that. And
Mostly.
probably Keshav can you also talk about what if something fails? How can we notify
Yeah.
on this content hot dot?
I will add to that as
Yeah.
well. So we use REST API a lot, but it's not just the REST API. We use lot of APIs. It's like we are trying to put everything in together. We use document API. We have not used extract API yet, but there is a use case where we can also use the extract API as well. And we also go and mess with the Postgres tables also at times.
Yeah.
That was my next question, is how often are you going back into the database? You get data out, move from database to database.
When you say, is it Postgres to Postgres, or are you talking about the source database?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's talking about the Postgres to Postgres. Like you're talking about the replication.
Querying
Yeah.
the database, getting data from there, and pushing that into the other, into the backup.
We don't
We
do
don't
that
mess
because
with
that gets really tricky. That gets really complex with again so many metadata tables being added. We don't mess with the Postgres in this scenario. Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
There are certain limitations that we have to work through with Postgres, and so very basic stuff, but we don't move stuff around from one to another. That makes sense.
Yep.
Yes.
There's a content migration, I know you don't move from Postgres to Postgres, but there's content in the Postgres in terms of usage, those admin reports. Does the content migration take care of that as well?
Well, I mean, it's not, we never, because it's not really that important, we were thinking more of like supporting the cluster. It's only when your cluster A is done, your cluster B is hotted back up. But yeah, so for your admin views, for example, to see the usage and all,
We can eventually do it, but think about it. I mean, we are not copying Postgres to Postgres.
Yeah, we're not doing the audit. So this is not about your auditing, right? This is not about like the usage of the stats. It's more about if something goes down, you have another cluster immediately back up.
So I have a question. For that use case, couldn't you, if you did a full backup through the tab command
Yeah,
and restored it like once a day, middle of the night or whatever, to your hot backup, and that way you're just a lag behind, you'd still have that, it would just be a day behind, right?
it is.
that
But
would
again,
be-
it won't be like a hot. And again, if you're talking about the orgs, which has like maybe hundreds and hundreds of extracts, which are having billions of rows, the backup and restore will probably take 2 to 3 days. You're talking about like
Yeah.
big orgs, yeah.
So to add to that, I think the recommendation we gave them is run your backup restore once like a week or something, and have this incremental keep running and
Yeah.
just move the content.
Have both
Again,
of them together.
You just won't get usage data.
Yes, you won't get the usage
Yeah,
data.
if the usage
Yes.
data is like really important, I mean, those are not too many tables. So the HTTPS request tables and all, you can replicate that because it's like one single table. You can probably store it somewhere else in your, maybe like other SQL Server or Oracle, wherever you can dump the data there. Yeah,
Cool, thank you.
And that's something we've done to keep historical information.
yeah, for more than 180 days if you need it. Yeah, a lot of companies do it.
Or
Yeah.
when you move things around, you have to have that offsite.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Somebody else had.
I was just gonna say that if those are that important, just data warehouse, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
Warehouse all the usage for our tools.
Yeah.
So no, again, another thing is this is not like a lockdown script or anything. This is more like a starter script, something that we could use as a template. If there are needs, if there are requirements or additional requirements that come up, we can always customize it to the implementation, and we do that quite a bit. So this is more like a starter template. This is like we are throwing ideas and saying, you know, think about it from your organization perspective. How can we make your life a little bit more easier, so you don't have to do or go through all this manual effort of
Right.
taking and then backup and restore. We have heard this, and when you said 2 to 3 days, it's
Yeah.
actually real. We have seen some.
Yeah, if you're talking about the orgs, which has huge Tableau footprint and talking about like hundreds and hundreds of extracts, that is going to take a lot of time.
Lot of
to,
time. And
to
if you
back
have
up and
cloud
restore
ba-
both of them. Yeah.
If you have cloud-based, then
Yeah.
it's even worse.
Yeah.
So this is just a helper.
Yeah.
Do you have something else?
Yeah, for this whole the content or hot backup, is there any way to monitor the stuff? Like something fails, how do I monitor?
Yeah,
anything?
yes.
Because it's a lot of things happening
Good
in the
point.
background. So
Very good point. So what we do is we do keep track of we audit the changes. We know what's going on. If something is failing or if it is successful and things like that, we aggregate all that. And at the end, if a email server is configured with the script, what we do is we take that, we send all the audits of changes to the server admin or whoever is needed to know, and then any content that could not be published, we will report that back to the publisher saying, for some reason your content did not migrate, go check it. So
it's like a daily
it is
audit.
possible.
You can get like a daily audit report.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so with that, we have a bit of a time here. So what we want to do is we want you to think a bit more and turn around to whoever's sitting next to you, and talk about some possibilities. We'll just take like maybe 3-4 minutes. Just think about what you could do within, what your pain points might be within your organization, and then you can talk and you can sort of come back and tell us, we can take like handful of scenarios and we can see if either the scripts that we developed or if there are new ideas for scripts. This is a good, nice open forum, so you guys can go ahead and
Something
see if
that
you
you
can
want to
think about.
automate your pain points. Yeah.
So I guess look at the REST API and the update document, update workbook doesn't allow you to change the timestamp. It doesn't have it as an input parameter. So am I looking at the wrong API based on your first agenda point? Which API should I be looking at to implement your recommendation?
For the cache.
Oh, for the cache, okay. Yeah, so that is not an API driven. Unfortunately, it's a
PG
direct
script.
Postgres.
It's a Postgres. So you
Postgres
can,
touch.
everything is like a Postgres table. So you're modifying the timestamp.
Directly modifying the Postgres table.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're writing a Tableau's Postgres?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
user ID instead of the read-only ID.
Yeah.
Tableau's Postgres, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we do that in a lot of companies.
It,
No.
no. It is unsupported, for sure. Any of the scripts that we are talking about are not supported
Yeah.
by the Tableau.
Yeah. Obviously, you're
support.
cheating the system. Like I said, we are cheating the system in a lot of ways. But
APIs are supported. If I'm using the APIs, those are supported.
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Anything using the API, yes.
Yeah, API is
APIs
supported.
themselves are
It's not
supported.
a
Yeah.
direct database.
yeah. It's not direct database, but
Or even
yeah.
if you take, if you have a question on one of the scripts, right, the way it is running or something's not working, if you call this up Tableau support, probably they won't be able to help
Yeah,
you
even the
on
REST
the
API,
script.
yeah, even the REST API scripts, whatever you create, if you call the support, they won't be anything beyond the box. APIs is beyond the box, right? So, but yeah, but we've been successfully testing this in many large enterprise customers with no issues. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Tableau tool itself, is there anything in the roadmap, like, moving content between environments, doing the hard synchronization, they should be provided, I mean, this is not new, right?
Yeah.
It should be from Tableau, is there?
I think so. There is something in the roadmap.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, specifically with the hot. I think there are a couple of things the dev team is working on. Maybe
I don't know
maybe
if
the
we can-
Postgres. I think they're trying to replicate the Postgres hot. I think it's still in the early stages. I don't think we can give you a clear road path yet. But yeah, obviously. I mean,
These are
these are the common asks from many people. So obviously, yeah, they're working into it.
That's actually pain point,
Yeah,
Yeah.
content
Yeah.
between environments.
right.
And the second question is on the cache, it can't be unlimited, right?
Yeah.
So what's the mechanism?
So there is a limit of 512 MB, but which is like a lot of cache though. I mean, obviously if you have like 50,000 user requests in a single day, it would be a first in, first out. So that means, yeah, it's first in, first out. Not everything will be gone at the same time. It's first in, first out mechanism.
Do you have a cache setting where you can define the limit of the cache?
No, the Redis, that's a Redis limit of 512 MB.
Some databases provide some cache, you don't want to follow the free-form mechanism, you want it to stay.
Yeah.
So can that be done?
So we don't leverage the database cache, right? So obviously the data, we are talking about our own cache server.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just giving an example. Can that for good.
You can't. No, you can't. You can't manage at the request level. You can't say for this particular request workbook, keep this for like 18 hours. You can't.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you have a multi-node cluster.
Yeah.
And each has seeded the cache on one particular node.
Yeah.
The visitor will know exactly how the data gets spent.
Yeah. So keep in mind, it's all synced. So if you have a 4-node cluster and you have 4 VSQLs, and you'll obviously have the cache server on those 4 nodes as well. So whatever the request comes in one cache will be synchronized across all the nodes. We sync.
We have the cache server on all the 4 nodes, and because we run visitors on one node and we run the pages on the other node.
Yeah, that is fine. That is fine. But the recommendation is wherever you run the data server and the VSQL server, also have a cache server running on the same system. Yeah, same node.
Yes.
So I like this session because it made me think about a pain point, kind of what they're talking about, like, why do you keep doing the same thing over and over again. So I wanted to bring up a question and see if this is the right way to solve it. So whenever I create an extract, it puts me as the owner, and then whenever the extract fails, I get an email. And so I was thinking maybe with this API, I could go through and just rename owners for all extracts, all data sources to like a monitoring type account, like a DL, and then whomever is on that DL can get the email. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't want to get an email if I'm out of town in New Orleans.
Yes, yes. The REST API exactly does that. You
Is
can.
there a better way to do that?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
couldn't create a group and assign an email within there.
Yeah.
You can create a dummy account
You can
Yeah, you can create a dummy account.
and everyone's interacting.
Yeah. And you also.
And I have to manually add that.
Yeah.
We use the API to change it.
You can use
Yeah.
the API. You can
Yeah,
script
you
it.
can use the API to change it.
The
Yeah.
other thing too
Besides
is,
DL, the email address of the DL is the customer.
Yeah.
Once we change the owner,
Yeah.
any
The
alert,
other thing
anything
is-
else with the DL.
Yeah.
in the future, you'll be able to use webhooks.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just saying. You can get a Slack message like what you saw on the dev on stage with the webhooks.
That's a future feature. It's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
The webhooks will be able to say, hey, look, this refresh has failed, send this wherever it's gotta go.
Yeah. We were just discussing this actually yesterday. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have something?
Yeah, so it's specific to Active Directory sync for regular use in terms of adding and removing users, adding and removing groups as opposed to the migration. We're not a leading edge company, we're at 10.2 right now. When we were at 10 or 9.4, we were able to use scripts to do Active Directory sync. I forget the exact commands, but we had a config file, we used commands to do a sync based on wildcards saying someone was added to a security group, update Tableau. When we upgraded to 10.2, those commands stopped working. So is that when the REST API was introduced and that's when we should be using that? Because right now, there is a built-in sync that we're using within the Tableau GUI where we have to spell out all the groups that we want synced.
So that's the standard method. What you're talking about. The REST API has been introduced, I think 9.3 itself. It's been there for
Been
a
there
while.
for a while.
Yeah. So what you're using is a standard methodology, but if you want to automate the process, obviously using the REST API.
Okay, so but that came in 9.3.
Yeah, 9.3. It's been a while. Yeah.
REST
REST
API.
API has been there for a while.
You can still use batch script, I think the word, programming has changed.
Yeah.
It's called sync group. This, the verbiage or examples of command structure is still in the online help. It's just that when you look at the URI where it says current, change that to your version number. So if you're on version 3, just change the word current to be 10.3, etc. And it will show you the help text specific for that version.
Okay, because when we upgrade, I think actually I was at 9.0 maybe, but when we upgraded, and the batch commands failed, support was unable to direct us to use APIs or use another command, so that's why I'm
Use the
asking.
same command structure, just look it up under V 10.3.
Yeah.
If you still have issues, again, this script would definitely help you in that scenario. Yes, sir.
In our environment, we see that the memory usage on our server kind of climbs indefinitely until it crashes. It did this on Windows. We switched to Linux. We still see it doing it. To remedy it, we restart the whole system
Is it not, did you make sure it's not the system resources? Are you following the standard guidelines?
I think so.
Cores versus memory and all that?
Yeah, we have a lot of memory.
Is it the WSQL which is causing the issue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We see it in our environment. There is a setting inside the configurations file where you can limit the maximum memory it can consume for a process. So it'll basically terminate that particular process.
Yeah, so we have something called as SRM, Service Resource Manager, which is like a watchdog, and every resource has its like own threshold. And when it reaches, for example, for WSQL server, it reaches 75% and becomes unresponsive for maybe like 20 minutes, let's say, it will respawn the processes. So I'm like surprised why you're not seeing that. So you should probably, I mean, this is a separate topic, but you need to run a log shark analysis for like a last week of logs and try to see where exactly the bottleneck is happening. Yeah.
Follow-up question, can we run the TSM cleanup command?
Yeah, that will clean up your logs. So you can run,
While the system's running?
yeah, you can run like maybe once a week, once a month, up to you. Yeah.
I recommend it.
Yeah.
Ask about automation. There's a scheduler that helps with extracts and subscriptions and some that doesn't sync. Is there any plans to extend a scheduler to these scripts for the services?
No.
Yeah.
This you can,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're using Windows, you can use the Windows scheduler to schedule it. Or if you're running it on a Linux machine, then you can put a cron job.
Yeah, maybe there is something already in the pipeline, but we are not aware of it. But yeah,
So we use Control M, but that's just yet.
the Control M job. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's good. I think that, yeah. You want to have everything in one system. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Something
that's a
we-
good ask, but yeah,
Something we can think
maybe
of.
in the future. Yeah.
The interesting thing is if you write these scripts, we have written it in Python, that's cross-platform, which means that you can run these scripts outside of Windows as well. And as long as your Tableau servers are accessible, network accessible, that's all we
Yeah,
do.
the scripts can be run anywhere.
And then again, I've seen a lot of people ask that, hey, when I take a script, they say, do I have to run it within my Tableau server? And the answer is no, you don't need to. You can give its own memory, you can give its own cores or whatever, so that this script can be completely independent of your Tableau server.
Yeah.
The only thing we ask for is network accessibility, where the script servers are running.
Yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned about incremental backup, right? What determines if a workbook is changed?
What?
Like, what do you look for to say that this workbook has been changed or not?
You can check from last modified date timestamp
Okay, now
from the previously checked.
using a millisecond cheat for the on-demand dash.
So you need to come up with those rules. Yeah.
There is also another thing that we look at. In Postgres, there is a table, I can't remember exactly, but there is a table wherein only the only the changes that have happened to the workbook, not the millisecond adds,
Yeah.
they will be captured. So we go off of that table to see what has changed since the last time we ran.
Yeah, so come up with like a more logical kind of maybe 1 hour, 2 hours or something that is more appropriate for the rules, right? So that will make more sense, because obviously no one can modify a workbook within milliseconds. So yeah.
You said the project lead has to approve the changes before the package is migrated. And how do you know that the project lead has approved? Are you using comments or?
Comments, yeah. Comments is
Comments
one,
there.
tags is one, and the extension API is one.
Comments is what we use. There is a complicated query that we have written up, which determines whether the user is a project leader or not. And then,
Please
if the
do give us the survey. That will
yeah,
help us.
please fill the survey for us, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you so much.